Namaste, good morning, welcome to the class. Today we will be looking at one of the most important areas of dance that you are directly connected is media and the classical dance. You know how important it is for you all in today's world, and let's look in how the relation between media and classical dance has developed over the years. As in the most Indian classical dance forms are all ancient, even if revived and revitalized in last few centuries, its outreach through the media is a very different story. The story is not even a century old because the state of development in dance, writing, or for that other classical arts is rather recent. And what we are talking of dance writing is not the texts of dance, because we have Natya Shastra from 2000 years old, but what we are thinking and what we are looking at is the modern and contemporary, not texts but descriptions and books on dance as written in the newspapers and now in all modern gadgets. So, the earliest written record that are accounts are of foreigners as late or as early in 1880s and beginning of 1900. Those who came to India as cursory or informed travelers, and they neither had specific exposure or a deep understanding of Indian classical dance or music for that matter. There were the turn of the century travelers who were either enamored of things Indian or hated it outright, often dubbing Indian customs as primitive or its manifestation immaterial. The land of the cobra enticed these foreign travelers, writers, and much was made of their deep and abiding interest in things Indian. This school of writing and the style was seen in early writing on the late 19th century and early 20th. Without naming anyone as an individual, most of these foreigners justified India or its colony as an outdated culture, though age-old practices had nothing to do with their modern sensibilities. This trend continued till 1920s, when real dancers started coming to India and made more meaningful interpretations of the Indian dance. Among these was one Victor Dandre, renowned Russian ballet artist, husband of no less, of course you guessed, prima ballerina like Anna Pavlova. He lamented in 1922, there are no schools of dancing in India, and what we see in our visit are stray references of Nautch. Such was the dance scenario just 90 years ago. From then on to now, so much has happened, and this module will survey main milestones. The Pavlovas were followed by American couple Ruth and Dennis and Ted Shawn, who were on an extended tour of Indochina, as the entire region was dubbed then. They halted in India for a few years. A ship travel and large group necessitated a far slower pace. Ted and Ruth not only saw but learned small pieces with which they regaled dance audiences back home. Marwari dance, peacock dance, cobra dance. For them, Indian dances were exotic and mystical, and of course oriental. The Shawns were followed by more Americans to India. Lamary, who discovered Ram Gopal and took him on tour and later helped him reach Europe, where his unusual looks of Burmese mother and Rajput father zones and regal attires made him look like a god, if not a prince come alive on stage. He captured European imagination, and Ram Gopal in 1930s was a popular name in Europe. A real prince, although more in nomenclature than royal lineage or reality, was Uday Shankar, who was studying painting in London and chanced to dance with Anna Pavlova in Paris and then in London, established him as a Hindu god descended on dance stage. He too captured the foreigner's imagination and was thus established as the Prince of Indian dance. Ragini Devi came next and went to study Kathakali in Malabar, as Kerala was then known, and saw Gopinath at Kalamandalam and partnered him in her dances. They became famous dancing group. Her daughter Indrani Rahman was India's first Miss India, and she was also the first to center stage a languishing form like Odissi. In the nationalist revivalist trends of 1940s, things Indian were taken up by Indians, and in dance an important advocate was E. Krishna Iyer. He was both a lawyer and an activist. In later years in 1930s, his pen drew venom on the plight of and decline of Devadasis, the traditional practitioners of Sadir or Bharatanatyam. He fought hard and he fought long for the reinstatement of both the Devadasi and dance. The dance survived, the hereditary proponents didn't. His writings were the earliest Indian writings of depth and meaning, as he knew both the sastric texts in which our dances were moved. He also knew English better than the Queets. His massive campaign provided much ink for the print media then. E. Krishna Iyer continued to be both known. E. Krishna Iyer can be called the first Indian critic of Indian dance. At the same time, there was a maverick writer in Bangalore called G. Venkatachalam. His writings were more fun and PR driven than dance, and his surface level knowledge made him appreciate most dancers of the period, with his favorite being Shanta Rao, whom he also put on cover of his second book. He wrote brief chapters on each main star of that period. Some chapters provided interesting glimpses into life and times of artists those days. One example is Gopinath and Thangamani, how he informed of the divide between North and South Kerala, how Cochin girls were far better looking than the Travancore girls. Nationally, there were few writers in the mass media, as our dances have been regional and language specific. So, someone writing on Manipuri may not reach Madras or vice versa, if English was the connecting language. History gave that role to a Punjabi who went from missionary college run by Americans, the Foreman Christian in Lahore, to Kalakshetra in Madras, founded and run by Rukmini Devi Arundel. He became the first male student of Kalakshetra from North India, Mohan Prakash Khokar. In the 1950s through the 1990s, he remained the single most erudite and knowledgeable writer of depth. He also took his own photographs. Those days, a rarity. A very expensive proposition. Even black and white film roll had to be imported. Thus, he pioneered dance documentation. Today, his large holdings, named after Mohan Khokar dance collections, are the only direct and authentic record of dance history and heritage of the last century in totality. His books remain sold out and seminal. He inspired and mentored the next generation of writers. One man helped save and serve the dance history of a century of Indian dance. He is hailed as father figure of dance writing, photography and documentation. Next, Dr. Kapila Vatsyan concerned herself not with one aspect of performing arts, but with an overall concern for aesthetics. Her earliest writings were on social dancing in college, and much later she took to books on classical and folk forms. Her position in Delhi administration as the chairperson and secretary of the Sangeet Natak Academy helped her cement her standing in the art fraternity. She gained in strength over the decades. She did not do reviews, but over reviews, and in her senior years took to platforming larger concerns in arts and culture. She created institutions like IGNCA, Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts. She also ended up as nominated member of the parliament. Kapila Vatsyan is one of the most authoritative name in the history of dance and art in India and in the world. Sunil Kothari, Subbadu, Srinivasan were all dance writers in the 70s through 80s, and they held their jobs teaching, working for government and writing on the side. While Dr. Sunil Kothari did much field work and wrote columns and books, Subbadu was a Carnatic music specialist, and K.S. Srinivasan decorated the Delhi dance pages of the Times. Other critics of that period one can name in passing are V.V. Prasad, S.V. Rajan and Narayan Swami. Shanta Sarabjit Singh came to dance writing via films in the late 60s. She was a quintessential celebrator of all art forms, and while not specializing any one, she made it her mission to view dance arts through a prism of positivity, thus supporting all shades of dancers. She was known for her excellent craftsmanship of language, and till date no one can match that command and control over English in dance writing. Many young people and in their mid 40s and 50s have developed a good sense of writing on dance and have contributed extensively in dance writing, in magazines, in newspapers, and they have had extensive exposure to dance writings. Some of them to cite is Dr. Arshia Shetty, Dr. Ketu Katral, Dr. Tulsi, and so many. Just as an example, Ashish Khokar, he came, we'll discuss a bit about him, because to give you an idea that how learning dance and then dance writing can also become your one of the professions. So, Ashish came on the scene as a generational shift between the old and the young India. He has taken up issues and has helped dance field more than an individual dancers. He started to write in 1985 with Weekend Review of the Hindustan Times Group. He wrote freelance columns on the dance for the week in Delhi, and before that and after that he was made the dance critic of the Times of India. He was only 29 of age, and since then has written many books on dance and arts and culture, dance and biographies, and has the longest running dance column on the internet. Also he edits and publishes, the Attendance since 1999. Tapachi Chowdhury from Kolkata was a student of Guru Gopinath, and she undertook the role of dance writing in Kolkata after senior N.K. Sri Shivashankaran started teaching and later left the city. Gauri Ramnarayan of Chennai wrote on music, dance theatre, films and literature. She showed style and substance and also shows strength of conviction. Nandini Ramani wrote for few years for The Hindu. Rupa Shrikantnath shows spunk and style, and now we have many writers who decorate the Chennai season in December when dance is on. The main cities where a variety of dance activities took place like Bombay. It was more than in Madras in 1950s and 60s and in Delhi in 1970s till date. More than Madras in the same period, writing on dance was cursory at best and persona at worst. Dancers like Shirin Vajivdar or Rita Devi, who wrote as dance critic of leading newspapers in Bombay like Times of India, themselves wrote informed articles, but rarely criticized any fellow artist, of course. In Delhi, retired people took to dance writing to supplement their work. These were mostly in the 1970s to 1980s, and this group of quasi critics were either seeking an assistance by penning some space filler reviews, using standard descriptive form for program notes palmed off a critic. They wrote she did scintillating tirmanam set to rag hindolam, a type of reviews made to difference to dance outreach or appreciation. It certainly gave a kick to both the writer and the enemies of the dancer, who was thus demolished. Some vintage dancers are on record saying they paid monthly salaries or stipend to one particular critic of Delhi to write positive reviews. Media's role in dance evolved thus. Slowly after independence, when many classical forms got established, reviews gained currency in the 1960s through 1980s. This was the best trend in dance writing in the print media. Many editors of national magazine discovered Indian dance for and as a great visual filler and filler. Magazines like Illustrated Weekly and Famila gave cover page stories on dance and dancers, while Mulk Raj Anand with Mohan Kokar edited and put together many issues of Marg from Tata Press as a standard journals of dance. They are still hailed as benchmark, but most later day in-flight magazines gave 7-paged features on dance festivals or jewelry and costumes, photographed by commercial or industrial or film photographers. The dance photography started with Avinash Pasricha. Dance writing remained confined to reviews and columns, were not national but local. Thus, someone writing in Delhi was known mostly in that region, and someone writing in South known only in that region. Non-metro India like Bangalore with Chandrasekhar or B.V.K. Shastri and Hyderabad with C.V.N. and Narayan remained local. Even Madras writers who knew only Carnatic music and mathematics and Bharatanatyam and Bhagavat Mela were not in national radar because they did not know much about any other form, say Kathak or Chau or Manipuri or Rof or Gidda or any other folk form. Calcutta had Uday Shankar trained dancers like Shiva Shankaran, who became critics of newspaper like The Statesman. In the 1990s, a new set of generalists came to fore, who neither knew an art form or the subject, but had either an assured place in society by virtue of situation in life. They knew not much, but their connections assured places on committees that mattered, and influence was peddled. In 80s in Delhi, few dance interested youngsters took to dance writing, but did not last long. They branch off to other disciplines. In 1990s, saw the age of journalists became the age of generalist, One person could write on how to make dhokla with as much as ease as how to do bhangra. By 2000, except for a few regional newspapers, which not much circulation to boast of, had given dance reviews a go by, maintaining that classical dances did not concern the masses. Fashion and food did, finance and films did. This trend led to total demise of reviews, and the few who wrote just filled half-page spaces to remain afloat and help the paper remain relevant. Dance portals were the next step of evolution, and certain active sites showed potential. Originally, some were on enlarged version of address book and telephone numbers, with few established names as columnists who gave it eminence, depth and substance. It soon declined to drivel and personal columns. Anything went in and there was no quality, content or check. Editors were generalists and knew no dance heritage or history. So, any content was being put up under the garb of being open and democratic. Such sites were rather South-centric in content, approach and attitude. Strangely, in absence of any other dance portal, one lone ranger from Madras became important because everyone had a platform for free and most dancers desired and got publicity. No dance portal was set up from East to West India. North India boasted of one musician who started a reasonable art portal, but lack of content upgrade again made it a posting for ads and promotional bios. Now, in this age of internet, everyone can write their own blogs and comment and force friends and fans to believe they and their art is the best gift to mankind. If not that, some have taken to questioning the collective wisdom of generations before and thus offered no alternate voice while stifling what little squeak could come out of such writings. 3 dance magazines, one a monthly Shruti, one a quarterly Nartanam and one an annual Attendance, have somehow survived and platform dance. Dancers do not buy books or magazines unless featured in them, alas. Dancers do not read much unless it is about themselves, that too in good light. A chief reason why dance has not developed as an important spokesperson of Indian dance, but foreigners still continue to be employed or posted in the few dance department of universities of note that exist in academia. It is because native talent has not kept professional pace with professional ethics of dance writings. A critic should be respected and read and not feared and seen. In USA and Europe, a good critic comes to show quietly and sits inconspicuously, not wanting any attention or awards. Thus, such critics are valued for what they write or say. In India, the attitude is little different, and it is a lot of social mixing and mingling, and those who do not can be called antisocial or arrogant. Most Indian dance writers have no real background in either a form, subject or even language. There is no context of history, no serious research. There is little reference to Shastric knowledge or an understanding of Indian cultural tenets. In all this, the mediocrity rules larger, and the system now does not even permit dialogue or debate. 100 years ago, Indian dances were marginalized and on decline. What have we achieved in the last 100 years that we can be proud of in classical dance or its writings? In country that dines of its cultural identity, especially classical dance and music, do we have enough literature to speak for it? But there is a positive attitude in the last 10-15 years when youngsters like you all are reading, writing and understanding dance much better. As per Ashish Kokarji's view, critics have failed due to their paltry knowledge, petty politics and inflated egos. If Touching Feet of a critic can get good reviews, then the main question is, are those feet clean or made up of clay? Dance criticism in India lacks evidence and substance. Only one or two or maybe five critics now nationally have any standing or credibility, and very few dance historians. The top one has a degree in Indian history at master's level and learnt various classical forms. Do any of self-proclaimed dance critics know the process and protocol of dance history and writing? But that was the time. Now the times are changing. You all are very well versed in the dance styles and history and everything. So when some of you become, or those already who have become critics, they are writing sensible and well. Only one or two magazines address issues related to dance. For young students of dance, there is great opportunity to become a dance writer if one works hard. One needs command over language, knowledge of the art form and clear approach. One should not give or take favors. Reputation takes years to build, but once built, it will stay and it has to continue to stay. In a country of 1 billion where we dine out of dance Nataraj identity, it is interesting situation for the student to learn the form. And so, it is a great opportunity for all of you to also become dance writers. Thank you.